My name is Luke Grant.
The recording has started.
Assuming Mr. Bishop is online, I'd like to call the December 8th, 2020 meeting of the Water and Sewer Commission to order and start with the superintendent update.
All right, thanks, Luke. Hello, everybody. Well, start off, just got a few things to touch base on. Flow testing last Friday actually went extremely well. We worked with ABA Fire, company we hadn't worked with before. They were doing some testing down on South Washington Street at the old Mazda building to make a determination. Some of the hydrants that are there have not been maintained. They were overgrown. Some were actually painted the town colors, and there was some question as if they were on the town distribution system or off the high-pressure fire loop. So the company came in, did some testing on that facility, and indicated which hydrants are domestic and which ones are on that fire pressure loop, which they will be addressing, painting the correct color, clearing them out. There is one hydrant down there that's out of service. That also will be repaired and painted the correct color. So that was a very good day. We had a few hours we spent down there. There was no disturbances caused by the operation of the pump or the hydrants at the facility. So again, promising, but showing that the flushing is working. We'll jump over quickly to East Main Street, Mass DOT improvement project. We've been working with the contractor on a daily schedule there. They've been doing some pretty good progress. A lot of test holes been being dug just to verify some of the old plans that we had and some of the plans that the town had provided for drainage. There was a mystery pipe that's out there. I'm still not sure if that has been determined yet. I know Luke and Steve, you guys have been around for a while. Do you recall at any point in time over near the Rumford River why there'd be an additional 10-inch cast iron main in the ground? I know I don't have anything on my plans.
This live?
We do not know. That's the next step, is they're going to tap it. We tried tracing it. It falls off with the tracing equipment that we have. It was just part of a temporary dig that they were doing to verify depth, and they found the depth to be exactly where they didn't want it, and they found two mains in the same place where they expected to put the drainage pipe. So they were aware that one was going to have to be removed. They were unaware of what the other one is, and nobody I speak to or any plans that I've come up with indicate that it even exists. But it is there. Next step will be to do a tap on it and see if it is water. They were waiting to hear back from the gas company. Not that the gas company has anything that size anywhere in town. It's too big for them. We're assuming it's potentially drainage pipe. And again, speaking with the highway department, they have no plans on that area and wouldn't understand why that material would have been used for drainage unless it was some type of repair in that area. So they're going to proceed with caution. They've moved from that temporary excavation location, have been making progress on the opposite side of the road, making connections for the new drainage structures, and they've actually already started tying over some of the shoreside water services to the 16 from the old pipe that's out there. Unfortunately, some of that didn't go as planned. We had 2 emergency shutdowns over the past week and a half. Not a horrible thing to come across. They had some problems with some of their equipment, primarily the tapping machine. So unfortunately, the only way to correct that, where they're doing a 1-inch tap, you can't go with a larger tap, is to shut the main down, put a saddle with a cork already in that saddle to cover the hole. So every time we have a scheduled shutdown, notices have been given out to the residents in the area that's going to be affected when their service will be tied over. Most actually go unnoticed. The transition is rather quick. We've responded to 2 complaints that once the transition was made, there was a little bit of disturbance. We helped the customer out by explaining to them how to flush the cold water, and the situation was remedied rather quick. The unfortunate shutdowns that we're having, one based on old pipe, not in the location where it's shown on the plans. There was some repairs that were done out there with sections of pipe that were replaced with pipe that is not traceable. It looks like iron pipe, but I believe the gasket that's used is so thick to make the seal on the old pipe that you actually lose continuity with the tracing equipment. So there's been a few challenges right off the start. with the project. And we only hope it's going to go a little smoother as we transition. And we have somebody out there with them almost daily now, and staying ahead of them with markouts. But they are jumping around to fulfill their requirements for getting things in the ground within a certain time frame. So it's a moving project, I guess is the best way to put it. There's a couple of sections out there that will be coming up, that will be scheduled. I think I talked about this at a previous meeting. If I didn't, I apologize. There's a few sections on the larger pipe there that will require a shutdown and a relocation of the existing town water main. The new drainage pipe has to take up the same residence that the water main is in right now. So the easiest way to complete that is to actually put a loop or a small section of water main out of the way from where it normally lies. There are easements that were taken for that as part of this project. And in the areas that where it is possible, in those areas of excavation, they will be installing gate valves or a hydrant if it matches up on the plans. We're trying to bring that section into compliance or very close to compliance with the separation of gate valves and hydrants going on the AWWA standard of 500 feet for a hydrant and 1,000 for a gate valve. That's only going to further assist us down the line if we did have to isolate that pipe, and it'll definitely assist us with the flushing to improve and maintain the water quality in those areas. Let's see where we at. All right, a few more things. The capital budget time is here again. I've been working, trying to get some numbers crunched. They gave us a little short of a window. They want to do it, have the information in on the 21st, I believe, which is the Monday, 2 Mondays from now. So we have the final portion of the well 5 and 6 replacement project. You remember way back when we started, phases 1, 2, 3, and 4. We asked for the approval to borrow $850,000 to cover those phases 1 through 4. That money will be borrowed and in place to pay for those. The remaining phase 5, which I believe is considered the construction phase, we have a ballpark estimate for that, which would be $725,000 to $750,000 to bring a total cost of the remaining phase and the first 4 between 1.5 and 1.6 million for the 2 replacement wells for 5 and 6. That's something Tara and I spoke in depth earlier today with Rose, and we were going to crunch the numbers on that. We won't know the final cost for phase number 5 until it actually goes out to bid. So we don't want to be too conservative that we have to go back and obviously ask for additional funds, and we don't want to be so far ahead of ourselves that there is a ton of money extra that didn't need to be borrowed. So it's a balancing act. Tara was going to reach out to some of her contacts that may have dealt with similar bidding processes now post-COVID or during COVID, if you want to, and see if that has affected the bidding in any way. Obviously, we expect it may affect the time for the project. I'm not sure as far as the cost goes. Tara might have a little more on that a little later on. Then to continue on the water capital, we're looking to add at least one more pickup truck to the aging fleet that we have. And hopefully, once we come out of this shakedown for the COVID, we'll be able to actually retire one of the older vehicles. Right now, we are actually having people in vehicles that aren't typically a daily driver, but just to keep the separation. That's why we're doing that wherever possible. And we'll jump over, continuing on the water capital. As I mentioned, Tara and I have been speaking about multiple different things, one of which was the East Main Street project and how it's going. The potential to actually look at doing another water main or infrastructure improvement project as we come up into the next fiscal year. As I explained to her and I'll explain to you, there's a couple concerns. One, obviously, is the East Main Street project is going to be ongoing. This is a multi-year project. We don't want to pick a street. If we were to, that would create any problems when they do have construction delays in the area, and we don't want to have ourselves spread so thin that we don't have enough people to cover both operations, whether it be simple flushing or shutdown or anything. And then there's the third, which is the up-and-coming PFAS sampling requirement that'll be coming up in April 21. The Norton that sampled years back, I believe I was involved with it, and we tested for PFAS. There were different requirements back then, and the limits that they were testing for were far less than what they're requiring now. Many of the communities who had similar test results in the past as we did now are finding themselves testing in the range where they're required to do something, which is typically build a filtration plant. If they don't have one already, they're pretty far behind the 8 ball. We thankfully have our treatment plant to remove the iron and manganese, which is the first step to treat PFAS if you have it in the water. The next would be the GAC filter plant that would have to go in. So unfortunately, that obviously, just talking about it, it's going to come at a substantial cost. That's the big unknown. There's something I can't work into my capital plan. There's no way I could put a number on it. Without having test results in front of me to say that we have it or we don't have it, it's an unknown. That's something I'm going to work with the capital committee and the selectmen about after speaking to you guys about, just to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that the potential is there, that there may be some required additional monies that will have to be spent on filtration should we test in the category that we're required to do something for it. Just want to get your thoughts on that.
Steve, do you know other towns and communities that have installed these sort of supplemental filters?
Yeah, Mansfield is currently installing one at one of our well sites right now. Case Springs has been offline since May. One of our wells, our highest yielding well for that matter. And we're putting the GAC as a carbon filtration system, which seems to be the most desired form of remedy for this PFAS situation. The levels that they're talking to are literally parts per trillion, as opposed to parts per million, which is what we measure everything else in predominantly. And the parts per trillion is really knocking everybody around with the situations that they're in. Easton alone, every single one of their wells is over the PFAS limit, which is 20 parts per million. That's just to the components of the PFAS, which is it's a vast amount of chemicals that they test for, but they had about, I think there's 6 of them that we have to take. I can't pronounce what they are, but whatever that they have to equal under 20 parts per trillion for you to be safe, and but unfortunately, that's what our water departments are running into right now, and it's difficult to get underneath that 20. I can tell you that. It's ever changing as well. But
is that post-treatment, Steve, or is it pre-treatment water?
That's raw water. No, excuse me. No, I'm sorry. No, that's finished. I apologize. That's finished water.
Okay.
Yep.
But if everybody else tripping at the 25 per trillion, I don't think I'm friends you can help us out with this. I bet most of our wells will trip that.
It's a pretty low number, and it's a culmination of all those 6 specific chemicals values that the parameters that they use, and it's some of them you won't even get detected on, but those are the 6 that they're currently using right now to as indicators to get to this 20 parts per trillion. Big test.
Yeah. So I don't know how to throw a dart at the wall and carry a number for it. So I guess once we test, we'll have to adjust or put it in 2022's budget, I guess. I don't know what else to do.
Yeah, we don't really have much of a choice, and I'm sure Frank understands that as well. So we'll have to work together with Weston and Sampson and work up a plan and a proposal of whatever we're going to do in the future in the event that this does hit us.
Yeah, I know it's something that we just touched on just briefly here and there. We couldn't do anything here in Norton until we had the iron and manganese under control, which we do obviously now at 3 of our largest wells. 2 of those will be being replaced with new. Well 5 will actually probably be the first well that we actually have a test done on. That's the new well that's being drilled right now. It is not part of the distribution system. It is required to test that per DEP. So we'll get a good idea to know what's coming out of that new source. Most likely at that time, we're thinking, Tara could correct me on this, I think we're looking possibly sometime in January that we may see that test coming about. I'm not sure if we've narrowed down that window that tightly yet.
I would say January is a good estimate. We're now talking about the SIP analysis first week of January or so, and then we need to obviously get the screen in and do some testing. But yes, I would say that that's probably a good estimate is January.
Okay. So we'll be a few months ahead.
It does take 2 weeks or so, roughly, to get test results back, 2 to 3.
Yeah. So with those test results, we'll have a better indication to know where we stand, at least at that new source. That will probably be a good indication of what we may see at our existing locations in that general area. Obviously, 1 and 3 are the outliers. 1 being in a different water aquifer, that's in the Taunton River Basin there. You may see different water quality there, but again, like Steve said, the numbers that they're requiring us to test for and the 6 contaminants, if you will, they are really looking to find these, which I believe is why they've set the bar as high as they have. Unfortunately, these things have been around in just about everything that we would consider normal. Going back, as many years as you can think back, they were in laundry detergent, they were in insecticides, anything you can potentially think of, and there's a few things that they are still in, but the limits, the amounts that they are so minute, they don't consider them problematic. So, even if we're testing for items right now in this parts per trillion, if they add to that list later on and they want us to test for different words that nobody can pronounce, I can see this being an ongoing thing over the years. I'm not sure if the GAC or the granular activated carbon filters can remove every single one of the contaminants that they mention in the list, or if it is just specific ones. I don't have enough information on that. This Thursday, I actually have a seminar I'm going to be involved with to learn a little bit more about it, and got a few other guys here lined up that'll also be on that to see if there's anything else that we can pick up that one of us might miss. It's definitely going to be a new learning curve, and unfortunately, with things like this, the number and the pocketbook is open. I don't know if, like I said, it's just an unknown number. We're going to have to make that well known to the town, and that's just one of the reasons I've been very cautious on looking at doing any major infrastructure improvements, knowing that this is looming, and we just don't have a number for it. With that, I can jump out of the water capital, go over to the sewer. As I mentioned to you guys before, we really need to upgrade the emergency backup power at our Knollwood sewer pumping station. It hasn't failed, thankfully, knock on wood, cross some toes and fingers, whatever you need to do. We want to bring that up to the 21st century with an actual generator that can power the facility in the way that it runs on a normal daily basis. I've spoken with a few companies. A couple of them want to come out and actually view the facility. We've mentioned to them that we could be looking at upgrades in the future and replacing the existing pumps that are there. There are 2 4-inch pumps that are there now, We could increase the pump itself. We could increase the size of the bowl and the volute to have a higher discharge, or we could actually go up and match the discharge pipe, which is a 6-inch pipe. So it gives us many options there. Our limitation there is going to be the size of the wet well for being able to hold the waste prior to removing it and forcing it down the line. The conversations we've had, basically the motors that would be there, even if you went with a 6-inch pump on both, would be probably a 30 horsepower motor. So we've been able to give those specifications to the generator companies, explain to them we want this generator that we're looking to put in place to be handled the future upgrades, and not something we want to look at doing again anytime in the near future. So the estimate right now, without doing a load test or anything, just quick calculations that they've come back with, they're looking at probably between a 50 or an 80 kW unit that would be required there to run both pumps, VFD drives, the electric heat that's there under an emergency situation for a long period of time, and handle the load. Base number that they're throwing around, because this does require everything to be installed, generator, transfer switch, all the connections, the gas line, they're talking somewhere around the $50,000 amount, which compared to some of the other stations that we've dealt with and looked at, the number's really not that far off. With that number being 50,000 or more, it's going to require the 3 quotes, which we would obtain anyway to make sure we're getting the best possible deal for our money, and we'll move forward with that. There are expected delays with the amount of storms we've been having and the power outages that we have around the area with obtaining these quotes. I've expressed to 3 companies I've reached out to, and a 4th today, the importance of getting those to us. I can only keep calling them every day until I get it, so I'll actually have that for my capital improvement backup, which is a requirement. The other thing I wanted to mention was in the sewer. I mentioned that's probably 2 years ago, if I remember correctly. I had asked for the approval to actually put up a sewer garage to move the sewer department equipment and spare parts out of the water department garage and bays. At the time, that information and price that I got was the best price I could find anywhere. I believe it was around $100,000, soup to nuts, and it was turned down at the time. I don't think I have enough time before this capital goes out to try and get information and re-quotes on that again, but I am going to try. Obviously, the spare parts don't get any less with the addition of sewer stations that we have to the facility here. The vehicles now, we have a few water department vehicles that are having to remain outside, which just obviously deteriorates them quicker. And if we need them, unfortunately, in the event of emergency, in the middle of winter, you always have the possibility of being snowed in, not starting. And there's a multitude of issues that go on there. So we would like to use the water department garage for the water department vehicles. But my main focus is going to be on that sewer generator, obviously the pickup truck, and we'll go from there. If anything else falls into line, great. And that's about all I have right now, guys.
I appreciate the revisiting the sewer separate garage, and from my limited exposure to the facts in the sewer, could somebody update me on whether the COVID actually is transmitted through sewerage?
I don't have that answer for you.
I know you're not supposed to drink it.
Well, Bishop, I do appreciate that. That's our baseline, and I guess I wouldn't put it in my cookie mix either. But
I haven't heard that though.
Okay, all right. It would just be another timely reason to reinforce the already very, very good notion that sewer vehicles should not be with water vehicles or in the same facility. It's not a luxury. I believe it to be a necessity. $100,000 is really just the price of a couple of pickup trucks at this point, and you're protecting our investment in those vehicles. It's not a multi-million-dollar facility. It's just another steel building I'm getting, Frank? Is that what you're looking at?
Yeah, it was a very basic building, very similar to what we have out there. I don't, not to drop a name, but a Morton building is what we have on site right now. You know, there's other ones out there. There's United Steel, there's Morton. There's a few different companies we reached out to before. The price we had, I believe it was 2 years ago, I believe it was $100,000. That included the pad, the installation, the doors, everything. We were going to need to make a connection for the electric, which was going to be done by the electrical contractor that we use here in town for small repairs. It was going to be minimal. I would have to assume, and I hate to do that, but I'm going to think that that number has gone up significantly since then. But I can only hope that the number is not doubled or tripled.
Is that our only option?
But the need doesn't go away. Unfortunately, the cost. I don't know what else we'd have for options. That was the cheapest that I looked at compared to you know, a regular stick frame structure. And the amount of equipment that we've acquired for the sewer department, you know, we have the 2 vehicles, we have you know, the sewer jetter, we have lengths and lengths of pipe that go hose, I should say, that go onto the sewer jetter, plus our multitude of spare parts, impellers, motors, pumps, check valves.
This needs to be heated too.
It will need to be heated. That was worked into the price. It was going to be 1 gas unit ventilator. So I mean, minimal additional expenditures for, you know, a gas supply line and the electrical, which can be wrenched over. You know, our department can do that. So the benefit outweighs the negatives. I'm not sure why it was turned down the first time, but it's something. Even if I don't get it in this capital, it'll be something I have no choice but to move forward with in the future. Again, I just hope that the price is worth it by the time we keep waiting.
Right. I'm gonna ask you to look at, once we do embark on the construction, to do a little bit of cost-benefit analysis on radiant heat in the floor. A lot of the stuff we're doing now, granted it's only large residential, but once you heat up that slab with the water in the slab attached, the lines are attached to the 6x6 welded wire mesh. Even in the commercial buildings, that slab is so consistent. You can control the heat, and it's even and very cost effective. The install is certainly more than a blower in the corner, but the quality and the duration, and the price jump is you know, a couple thousand feet of that 5/8 line is tubing is very, very low cost, and it's kind of a forever thing in that slab. And once you get the building up, you can't like retrofit it, so it's worth it. Something like that.
All right, I'll add that to the list.
I know you have some guys who are somewhat mechanical, and if I had a chance to do my job over again, when you're on a creeper on that floor, it's so comfortable, and it's such a nice room of heat, whereas the radiant from the slab is where you physically are, as opposed to the warm air is up in the 13 or 15 foot ceiling, where hopefully none of us are. But it's wild. If I did another commercial building, I wouldn't put it up without the radiant in the floor.
All right, excellent.
Is that the end of your request list, Frank?
That is the end of what I have.
Well, thanks very much for that. I'd like to move on to Weston and Sampson, and if we could start with Steve Peterson. What do you have for updates, Steve?
Yes, thank you, Luke. Can everybody hear me?
Yes, sir.
Loud and clear.
All right, good. Sometimes I can't tell if I'm muted or not. So, quickly just circle back on a couple of issues that you mentioned, Frank. So the first thing you were talking about, the Plumford River crossing, the pipe you don't know. I'm sure it's not. I just wanted to make sure it has nothing to do with that private sewer line. And you guys are clear on where that is, right? The 4-inch sewer line that comes down East Main Street to the interceptor.
Yep, perfectly clear on that. Unfortunately, in that same area, is where the contractor actually struck that line. It is actually far off the edge of the road, and this is on the opposite side. It runs parallel with the 10-inch cast iron water main, and it is 10-inch cast iron. It's very odd. It doesn't make sense why it is where it is. As I said, we spent quite a bit of time out there. We traced it. The trace drops off. The only thing that we've come up with, myself and the senior tech here, is that it could have potentially been installed as a future line, and maybe at the time all they had was the existing 10-inch pipe. But it's definitely a mystery.
Yeah. You know what they
No,
they just left extra pipe in the hole. It's just a random piece of pipe left for in case we needed it.
It's very possible it could have just been disposed of that way.
Oh my goodness. I have no idea what that could be. Let's hope it's a possible future spare line.
Luke, just circling back, I didn't chime in, you were talking about is there any knowledge of COVID in sewers. I am not up to speed on or in transmission. I know it is something that's being investigated in the industry. And I know as a company, we've got some people that are a little more up to speed on it, so I can look into that for you. At this point, I'm not aware that there's any science out there that it is a major issue.
Okay.
And then, Frank, just on the Norwood stuff, I'll do some digging. Just a reminder, we did do there were quite a few memos and back and forth with all these Red Mill Village and 274 East Main Street and now Turtle Crossing in terms of looking at that station. I just want to make sure you have the memo. I know we've looked at siting a generator and siting an adjacent wet well and the sizing of that. So I can dig that stuff up if you don't have it at your fingertips, the memos that were written before, just to make sure you're current with all the information that was developed through the years here.
No, I would appreciate that. I'm up to speed on some of it. I know there was an upgrade that was done. The existing pumps were replaced with the same size pumps as of the connection to there. That improved the output of the facility, but does not solve the problem if we were looking to add another entity to it. The wet well obviously is the loose link there as far as capacity goes. It'd be nice to know if there was some talk about a specific generator size, or if that was just sized to handle the pumps that were in place. Like I said, we want to make sure we can handle an upgrade if we do look to do something in the future. And according to the pump manufacturer, they said the largest, again, that you would put in there if you went even with a 6-inch would be a 30 horse on each. So not incredibly huge. In the limited generator knowledge that I have, with speaking with different people based on pump size and horsepower, the VFDs really knock it down there, so it is an easily handleable station, if that's even a word. And I think we'd probably get a accept that. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll see what we developed before, because it was some years ago now.
Okay.
All right, and then in terms of current stuff, the West Main Street sewer project, so since the last meeting, they have completed the permanent trench paving out there. So all the construction in the road is done. Currently doing vacuum testing on the manhole. We still are, sending one pickup truck out there, and it's impacting traffic a little bit, nothing like what the previous construction was doing. So, and they've got a couple more days of vacuum testing. The pipeline has already been tested, and we're just getting that done. So, continuing to move along. We're obviously anxious to wrap that up. The contractor is working towards requesting substantial completion. They can't do that until, or we can't acknowledge that until we accept the pump station. They're doing all the final equipment checkout and testing Basically, they're required to have all their manufacturer's reps come out and run through everything and provide to us in writing before we go out for a formal startup that everything is working, so that hopefully we're not working out bugs during the formal startup, which should be within the next, hopefully, few weeks, hopefully before Christmas. They'll be ready to do the formal startup of the pump station. So that's kind of where we're at. We talked before that anxious to, once we have the financial completion and the town can take ownership of the station, obviously the sewers will be ready at that time too. We'll approve those. So then we can talk about people tying in, as far as finishing the work. That will be in the spring when they come out and do that final mill and overlay, the full lane with mill and overlay on the paving, which will make it even better than it is now. So I think that's where we're at with West Main Street. I don't know if there are any other questions on that.
Well, I'll say it's very, very good news, Steve, that the winter overlay is on. At a certain point, I know you and a few of us never saw the project getting to this point. I'm very pleased to say that it's been a long road, but the benefit to the town is going to be seen very shortly, and I'm glad that it's finally in the ground.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel the same way. And one other thing I didn't mention, I talked to Frank earlier today, and I talked to the schools. We're talking with the schools about, so they're now connected, but they're connected through the pump that they always had there. The pump that was pumping into the middle school treatment plant is now pumping the high school yell into the gravity sewer, so that no longer goes down to the middle school plant. But we've got a meeting next week with the schools, with Lloyd and the superintendent Joe Baeta, to talk about what their options are in terms of, one, maybe modifying or making the wastewater collection systems that they have at the high school a little more efficient, and then also making it clear to them what their options are now that this infrastructure is in place, what they could do with both the Solomon Eves and the middle school, which could both, like we keep talking about these meetings, that you could ultimately convert that wastewater treatment plant at the middle school to a pump station. You could bring the Solomon Eves over to that, using that old water main that was, the abandoned water main that was slip lined with sewer, using that so that you don't have to dig into Route 123. All the work that the schools would have to do would be limited to the school properties. So anyway, we're going to meet with them, talk about that. We're also going to look, they've got plans of their stormwater. We are trying to keep an eye on making sure we're not bringing extraneous flow into the new sewers. And we are looking at the data that we're getting from the existing flow meter and making sure we're crossing our T's and dotting our I's with regard to making sure our system is watertight before we get started up here. So we have that meeting scheduled for Monday morning. I think that's it on West Main Street. So we talked last meeting that we were getting started with design of some modifications at Cobb Street, basically electrical upgrades, replacement of the generator with a newer, modern unit, as well as some other miscellaneous upgrades. So we've started, we've had our site visit out at the station and started putting together the plans. We'll be looking to go out to bid probably in the February-March time frame, so that we can have a contractor on board in the spring to make some much-needed upgrades at that station. And this is just step one. There'll be some more work in future capital budgets for that station as well as others. So I think that's an update on the wastewater. I would open that up. If you guys have any questions of me.
No, I think that sounds good, Steve. Anybody else have any questions for Steve? Good. All right, if you would, Tara, can you, bring us up to the, water side of things?
Sure, thanks, Luke. So I just wanted to open it up if there are any questions about PFAS. I know Frank gave you a pretty good summary there. We were chatting about some budgetary numbers. I think the long and short of it is you're not going to really know until you test all of your sources what potential impacts it'll be. But the thought would be that maybe a special town meeting or the fall town meeting would be time to appropriate some funds. But everybody in the state's going to be testing by the end of April, so it's a Massachusetts concern for every public water supplier out there that hasn't tested or has tested currently. It's a substance that's in pretty much everything on our everyday usage. They've eliminated a lot of it recently, but it's certainly been around, and it's a forever chemical, so it's not going anywhere. So I just want to open up if there's any more discussion or any questions you might have for me on that.
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you pronounce all 6 of the contaminants that we're looking for?
Ooh, you're bad.
I will need to read it, and yes, but I call it PFAS 6. So.
Just making sure Steve is awake.
He's on his third or fourth cookie. He's gonna be awake for a long time. Please continue, Sarah. We'll just call it PFAS.
Yeah, that's the yeah. It's the bad word. So I was going to switch over to the wells project, the replacement wells 5 and 6. We have moved forward with the drilling process. The last update, I believe, Frank had indicated we hit a little snag with the lens of clay and silt. We were able to break through that and complete the 54-inch casing installation. Next step would be the installation of the 48-inch casing, which is currently on site. They've been welding it the last couple of days. The thought would be that should be easier to install now that we've got the 54-inch in. So we're thinking a week or two, probably closer to 2. There's some rain in the forecast. There's been some recent rain, as well as the 2 days off for the holiday at Thanksgiving. So we'll have the Christmas holiday coming up as well as New Year's. So the hope is that, weather will continue to be roughly in our favor. We'll work on the 48-inch. Next would be the 36-inch casing. And again, probably another week or two to complete that. And as I mentioned earlier, the thought would be that we're constructing the full well by the end of December, not the first week of January, with a sieve analysis and starting the design for the screen in early January, with a pumping test towards the end of January. So we're on track. There's the potential for some weather, so we're keeping our eyes open for that. But the hope is that we continue moving forward. The thought is that yes, we would be sampling for water quality parameters as we put our report together to DP once the drilling and pumping test is complete. We would be testing as required by the state for any new source that would be tested for PFAS, so we will know. We do have some test wells out there already, so we could test in advance. It's kind of up to you guys if you want to. I think it doesn't really help for capital planning either way. You're still going to need to know your final source water, raw water from your new wells anyway, and then test up the other sites as well. So not to use the word well, but so that's kind of our game plan, is to kind of wait until we get the pumping test and do the standard water quality parameters then, and then move on. Certainly as soon as the drilling for 5 is complete, we'll switch right over to 6 and start drilling that well. So that's the next couple of months we've got planned, with a bid for construction, which is basically the installation of the piping from the new wells, fit the adapters with new pumps to the existing station so that the sampling can be done above ground, and we'd install meter pits to measure the water coming out of your wells before it goes into the source towards the treatment plant piping. So that would be a big project, again, spring 2021. And as Frank mentioned, we're working on the capital planning budget. I think, Frank, the $725,000 seems like a much a reasonable number. I don't think we need to go bump up to $750. I did talk to Kevin McKinnon today, and we haven't heard of any delays. Obviously, the water and wastewater industries have continued to move forward throughout this COVID pandemic. There have been some delays with some shipment of materials from out of country, but for the most part, we don't really anticipate any major delays with any of that for this project. So we should be on track. There's some additional coordination that we take with the state with COVID and restrictions on how they can come out to the sites for approval of construction. But again, we're familiar with their requirements and think we've covered that in our costs as well. So I would say 725 is a nice conservative number for budgeting for the Phase 5 construction and engineering oversight.
Okay, thank you.
I wonder
If I could chime in for 1 second, please. If there is a choice about the testing of well 5, I would prefer to wait until we get all the well itself built rather than the test wells, only because I don't know a lot about underground hydrology, but from my limited experience, I know each little 5-foot change in location will give somewhat different water. So I think it makes the most sense to wait until we get the entire well itself together and test from that, because that's when we'll be dealing with the PFAS requirements.
Yeah, and that will be the official submittal to DEP when that goes in as well for that well. You can always resample and continue to sample after the fact, but that would be the first actual reported sample for the new source, along with the other water quality parameters. So, yeah, it's all an indication. I mean, the wells are relatively close together. 5 and 6 are a little bit further apart. But the thought is that if it's in the ground, it's going to be nearby. The hope is that you're not pulling into from the river and there's a contamination upstream or something. But groundwater hydrology. It's a chemical that could be in slightly different concentrations. 20 feet apart certainly. So everybody kind of wants to possibly know in advance, and others, you might, just want to get the actual results and wait for that. So that sounds like a good plan.
Sounds good. And is there any way to limit the mobilization speed from 5 to 6 because they are so close? What is Sullivan going to do to us on that?
It's already in our contract with them. He knows that he's moving right over from 5 to 6, so there was a savings on mobilization. Yeah.
I love all that. Thank you.
Or that's what he's telling us. So.
No, that's
Yeah.
great. If he says it, I believe it. 2020's looking out.
Okay. Were there any other questions on the replacing wells 5 and 6?
No, that sounds good. I'm very excited. We have the positive results, and we will have the well 5 on sooner rather than later. We all know that our wells are band-aided together nicely, but I can't wait for these new wells to be online.
Yeah, it's coming. 2021. That's a good rate.
How's the treatment plant saga going?
So the treatment plant saga, there's some good and bad. I'll start with the bad first, which was the recycle tank. As Frank may have indicated already, the tank is leaking still, but it's a lot less. We were going around 6 to 8 inches overnight previously, and now we're down to 2 inches or so overnight. So I spoke with Methuen and asked them what their next game plan was. There had been some rumors of trying to just put it into service and waiting out the winter and moving into the spring. Their plan is actually to remobilize to the site tomorrow to get back into the tank. They inspected it last week, looked all throughout and found that there were a few areas where the epoxy coating, when they actually sprayed it on the walls, the second coat that occurred in the last few weeks, that there seemed to be some air bubbles that had popped and potentially could be part of the leakage issues. They're looking to get back in there and polish the surfaces. I did get a little bit more intel on the crack, the hairline crack that was seen. So we're waiting for them to get back out to the site. Their intent would be to wrap up by the end of this week their improvements again, and then by early next week attempt to fill again and check it out. So they're committed to continuing to work on this. There was some positiveness that we are, 1/3 of the rate of leakage, which is good. It's just not what we wanted to see. So they're back out there end of this week to hit it again.
That sounds good. I'm comparing it to the other tank, which doesn't leak at all, right?
Correct.
So that's what I think we deserve as a community for the money that they've received. I don't understand how, as a construction company, they're looking at it saying, hey, it's only leaking 2 inches overnight. I mean, we can all do the math, a week, a month, that's significant. And it's not something like, the auto repair equivalent would be the rattling stopping doesn't mean that the problem has gone away. It just means that shock absorber or whatever has fallen off the vehicle. And this isn't going to repair itself. It's not going to minimize. It's going to increase, and the town is going to be left holding the bag that the cooling has left us with. So we need it to be watertight. It's very simple thing. I'm anxious to see how they finish this time.
Yes, I think everybody is at this point. We continue to wait and see on this end, but I think they're back out at it again, and they have committed to completing this work. They realize that the town is withholding funds for payment until it's resolved. So that is a concern on their end to attempt to remedy this as soon as possible. They get hit home a little bit further in the last month or two than the last 6 months or so that we've been, the substantial completion letter indicated the 1% retained shells for that. So they, and I was asked by them to ask the commission, and I'll wait for your answer, but they were hoping with some of the other work that they've completed that there is some possibility of negotiating any form of release of any of the 2% retainage overall that we're holding. And if we need to have a further conversation, feel free we can set something up. But I think it's a request of theirs to discuss the remaining punch list items they have been working on. We did get a vibration analysis completed on all of the pumps last week. Well 5 is the only one that did not pass. That pump, they are working on a plan to possibly do some repair work with that. The remaining pumps inside the plant, as far as finished and raw water, as well as well 6, were all tested. I'm waiting for actual reports. We did receive additional information, O&M manuals, hard copies, warranties, certifications. I have 2 large boxes that I just got dropped off yesterday in our Reading office that I need to go through with our staff just to confirm our checklist of some of those items. The ADA ramp, I was hoping to drive by it actually today to just check it out. It had been installed. There was some concerns and some repair work that had been done. So I don't have any photos to check it out, but I wanted to see it for myself and how that looked. But so they made some efforts. I think it's certainly up to the commission. I know the change order work certainly is something that should probably be paid for and approved, which we tabled last meeting. This meeting, I just kind of wanted to bring that back to the forefront, but also put out the request of potential negotiation for retainage reduction. I think I'll separate this out a little bit, but I wanted to answer some questions before I kind of request a motion or discuss it. But it's moving forward. It's not complete, but the punch list has significantly dwindled. Other than the recycle tank, which is still the main concern that everybody has at this point. So I'm not sure if anybody has any concerns about the change order still. They did modify their pay estimate to include the credit for the utility invoices that we had put onto the change order, so that's fully in compliance with what we had anticipated for execution and why it was tabled last meeting. I do recommend approving that, and it's certainly up to the commission on the possible negotiation of any reduction in retainage. So I'll leave it open to questions or comments.
Especially when you haven't seen.
Thanks, Sarah. I had a chance to stop by the office yesterday. I did sign the change order portion. I'm happy to say that from what I see, like you said, they did include that utility in the wording that we require. So that part, personally, I'm okay with. The reduction in retainage scares me. And again, I bring it back to if somebody was working in my house and the deck is up, the deck is nice, but all the rails aren't in, and I can't get the final compliance with my deck without the rails in place. I mean, this bank is a big part of the thing, and I think they have to run with the change order release and that part, and they have to prove that, they're serious now. I mean, this should have happened 4 months ago. I'd be interested to find out what Weston and Sampson's costs have been to oversee their dragging their feet on this. And it's not that they haven't been doing it, but they did a partial repair some time ago, and then they retest. And we all know where they've been. And I'm not saying they should have gone for the whole thing right off the bat, but if maybe if they did, we wouldn't be here right now, and we'd be all closed up and home for the holidays. At this point, I'm not encouraged to release any more of the retainage than we're currently holding. I think we need that in our coffers to possibly hire somebody else if they can't stop this daily leakage.
Okay, I will discuss with them and see if there's any assurances or anything else that they can provide. The hope obviously would be by the next meeting that we'd be able to test the tank next week and have some results, which would go a long way. If it stopped leaking, that would be an immediate release of the 1% retainage. So,
right. If the tank holds water, I'm happy with that. The other thing, I haven't seen anything from them, and they probably think I'm not serious, but I want some sort of insurance policy, long term. This is a problem that's not going to go away, and if I know anything about underground structures, it's violent under there. Things settle, things move. This tank is not going to be a thorn in my side. It's something they have to propose, and they have to take it seriously. A surety bond or some sort of financial instrument, long term, to protect the town from this tank that has been slapped together. Mm-hmm. So I'll wait for their suggestion. If they don't, we'll come up with something on our own that legal counsel will have to recommend. But I'd like to have them step up to the plate and say that they're serious about standing behind their work.
okay, will do. I'll relay that too.
Very good. Anything else on the water side?
There was, for Pine Street, last meeting we approved pay estimate number 5. They were waiting on a few of the police details to close out the project. We did recently receive yesterday their final pay estimate from KJS for Pine Street, pay estimate number 6, which I emailed to Frank and I CC'd everybody today, this afternoon. That amount right there is for $15,833.94. It includes the police details for the final trench paving, the message boards that went up, as well as the release of retainage to kind of close out KJS's project. We're recommending payment to close out that work in that dollar amount. There needs to be a motion.
Mr. Bishop, would you be so kind as to make that motion?
Motion to approve that pay requisition for Pine Street job.
I'll second that. You're doing good. I'll second that. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion passes. If you can forward that to Frank Tara, when I can, I'll take a ride by and sign it. Or do we have to actually sign that, or can Frank sign that?
So the pay estimates, it seems that that they need to be signed by the commissioners. Change orders could be signed by Frank unless anything changes. But James seems to want to see the commissioners sign off on any payments to contractors.
No, that sounds simple enough. If you could get him copies, or if he could print copies, we'll each of us will just have to ride by and pay and sign them when we can.
Okay, will do. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anything else?
Sure. No, that project, so as far as the total costs are concerned, that project is closed out with the contractor. The remaining appropriation would go towards the highway superintendent. They'll be paving with their forces, their contracted pavers for milling and overlay curb to curb that stretch of roadway from the well all the way up to Plain Street sometime next year. So funding would just need to be paid directly to the contractor or through the highway department, and then if there's any services for our oversight, that's really the remaining funds. We do have a final KJS water main installer contract amount, so it went very well. So we were very pleased with that project, and I'm pleased with the contractor as well on that. So hoping for a nice new paved surface 2020 for those residents in that area.
Very good. That did go very well there. So, is it our choice to fund the contractor paving for the town, or to fund highway? How do we determine the process?
So we bid it as an alternate for the current contractor, and the pricing, when we received that information, the bids for the low bidder, highway indicated their contractors would be cheaper, and so we just need to discuss, invoices likely come from either directly from those contractors or via the highway department. But that is something that was appropriated to pay for curb-to-curb overlay of that roadway through the water and sewer department. So we just need to get the final cost and estimates from Keith Silver on that.
Sounds good. Frank, would you have time to touch base with Keith on that, so we don't surprise him or somehow overlook the right way to do this?
Yeah, I will touch base with him tomorrow.
Sounds great. Thank you. Any other water stuff, Sarah?
No, that covers my information for the updates.
Okay. Anybody else have anything at all? Are you still out there, Wiggins? Did we lose Peter Wiggins?
Oh, we might have.
Wow. He's zooming another meeting, I'll guarantee it. Well, I think that concludes our business for this evening, Mr. Bishop. I think we have a meeting in 14 days. So the other meeting being set, would you please make your favorite motion?
Motion to adjourn, sir.
I'll second that. Thank you, everybody. Be happy and healthy, and I will talk in a couple of weeks, if not sooner.
Good. Very good.
Thank you.
You
Good night.
too.
Good. See you guys.
This session is no longer being recorded.